Some of history's worst leaders didn't just kill people, they turned death into a performance. And the methods they came up with are almost too strange to believe. For thousands of years, punishment wasn't hidden behind closed doors. It was public, it was theatrical, and in some cases, it was designed to last as long as humanly possible. We're counting down 7 of the most extreme punishments ever recorded, starting with the one that's almost gentle by comparison. We're starting with the mildest one on this list, and it still involves being roasted alive inside a bronze statue. Number 7. The Brazen Bull. This one comes from ancient Greece. A hollow bronze bull, built life-size, with a small door cut into its side. The condemned person was led inside, the door was sealed shut, and a fire was lit underneath the entire structure. As the bronze slowly heated up, the victim was essentially cooked alive from the inside of a giant metal oven shaped like an animal. There was no quick way out, and no way for the screaming to stop the process once it began. The twist? The bull's designer reportedly built a system of tubes inside the head, so the victim's screams came out sounding like the bellowing of an actual bull. The crowd outside heard the bull roar, not a human in agony. It turned an execution into something closer to a public show. The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus wrote about this device centuries after it was supposedly built. Some modern historians believe parts of the story may have grown more dramatic with each retelling, but ancient sources consistently describe it as a real device. Here's the part that sounds made up but isn't. The man who designed the Brazen Bull is reportedly the very first person forced inside it. The tyrant who commissioned it apparently wanted to test it out, and decided the inventor made the perfect test subject. So if a ruler ever asks you to build him a torture device, maybe say no. Next, the ocean itself becomes the weapon. Number 6. Keelhauling. A punishment for sailors used by several naval powers for centuries, most notably the Dutch Navy, where it was actually written into official military law. The crew would tie a rope around the offender's body, run it under the entire ship, and throw him overboard, on one side. Then they'd pull him under the hull, across the keel, and back up on the other side, while the rest of the crew watched. The keel of old wooden ships was covered in sharp barnacles, almost like a wall made of broken glass. So as the man was dragged beneath the ship, he was scraped against that surface the entire way, assuming he didn't drown or have his back snapped against the hull first. Some sailors survived the first pass. The punishment was sometimes repeated multiple times in a single sentence, which meant most men who lived through round 1 didn't live through round 2. Keel hauling is well documented in naval law across multiple countries, including the Dutch and English navies, mostly in the 1600s and 1700s. This wasn't just sailor folklore, it was an official punishment on the books. And here's the strange part. Keel hauling was technically considered one of the lighter naval punishments available at the time. Sailors genuinely feared other options more. This next one didn't need water, it needed an animal that weighs 5 tons. Number 5. Execution by elephant. Used across parts of Asia for centuries, most notably documented in India well into the 1800s, which is far more recent than most people assume. Trained elephants, yes, specifically trained for this exact purpose, were used to crush condemned prisoners in front of crowds. Sometimes the execution was fast, 1 foot, 1 blow, over within seconds. But it could also be deliberately drawn out. The elephant would be guided to crush a limb first, then pause while the crowd watched, then continue to the next limb. The execution could stretch on for a long time, turning into a slow public spectacle designed to send a very clear message to anyone watching. This is what happens if you cross the throne. There was usually a handler riding on top, controlling the animal's exact movements, which also served as a display of how much power the ruling class held over both nature and people. British colonial-era records and earlier Mughal-era accounts both describe this practice independently, which confirms it wasn't just a traveler's rumor. It was a documented method of state execution used by real rulers. Here's the oddly funny part. Many of these elephants were the same animals used in royal parades and religious festivals the very next day. Same elephant, completely different job description. Now we get to the punishment that came with its own zoo. Number 4. POENA CULLEI, the punishment of the sack. This one was reserved specifically for people convicted of killing a parent, considered one of the worst crimes imaginable in ancient Rome, almost a crime against nature itself. The condemned was sealed inside a leather sack, made just large enough to fit a person. Not alone though. Romans would add a dog, a rooster, a snake, and sometimes a monkey into the sack along with him, then sew the whole thing shut so it was almost completely airtight. The sealed sack was then thrown into a river or out into the sea, left to sink or drift on its own. This punishment is described in actual Roman legal texts, including the writings of Cicero himself. It later reappears in parts of Germanic law centuries afterward, which shows how long the basic idea managed to stick around in different cultures. Why the animals specifically? Historians still debate it. Some think it was symbolic. Others think it was simply meant to make an already horrifying death feel even more chaotic and undignified. It's strange when you step back how many completely different civilizations, separated by oceans, centuries, languages, landed on the same basic idea. Make the punishment public. Make it slow. Make sure everyone watching remembers it. These weren't random acts of cruelty. Every single one of them had a message behind it. And the next three on this list might be the clearest examples of that. This next one wasn't quick. It was designed to last for years. Number 3. Gibbeting. After execution, or sometimes while a prisoner was still dying, the body was locked into a custom-fitted iron cage, shaped exactly to the human form, so there was barely any room to move inside it. The cage was then hung high above a public road, often at a crossroads or near a town entrance, for everyone passing by to see. Not for a day, not for a week, sometimes for years. In England alone, after the Murder Act of 1752 made this an official legal punishment, over 100 confirmed cases used this method. Some cages reportedly stayed hanging for decades, with locals complaining about the smell long after the body inside had decomposed. Several preserved gibbet cages still exist in UK museums today, and you can see them in person. This isn't folklore or exaggeration, it's verifiable physical history. And in a darkly funny twist, some of these cages became local landmarks. People gave them nicknames. Travelers used them as directions. Turn left at the cage. Number 2 is the one most people can't believe was real. Number 2. Impalement. Used across multiple empires, most famously associated with parts of Eastern Europe and the Ottoman world, but also documented elsewhere, including 17th century Egypt. A sharpened wooden stake, greased to make the process easier, was driven through the body. The stake was then planted upright into the ground, usually right next to a busy road, so it stood as a warning to anyone passing through the area. There were two main versions of this punishment. One was relatively fast, meant to kill the person quickly. The other was deliberately slower, the stake carefully angled to avoid hitting vital organs, which meant the person could stay alive, fully conscious, and in public view for hours at a time. Vlad III of Wallachia, the historical figure behind the Dracula legend, is the name most associated with mass impalements in Europe, and contemporary accounts written during his own lifetime do describe this practice being used on a large scale. One account even claims an invading army turned back after seeing a field of impaled bodies left behind by Vlad, choosing retreat over continuing the campaign. Whether or not the number was exaggerated, the psychological tactic clearly worked. And now, the one that even seasoned historians call one of the cruelest methods ever recorded. Number 1. Scaphism, an ancient Persian method reportedly reserved for the very worst offenders the empire dealt with. The victim was placed inside a hollow boat, or sometimes two boats fitted together, with only the head, hands, and feet left exposed through openings. They were force-fed milk and honey until the stomach was completely full, then smeared in more honey across all the exposed skin. The boat was then set adrift on still water, left fully exposed under the open sun. The honey attracted every insect in the area. The forced feeding caused severe digestive issues, which only made things worse and attracted even more insects over time. Over the course of days, not hours, days, the body was attacked from the outside by insects and from within by infection. A Byzantine historian named Zonaras recorded a case where a victim reportedly survived 17 days before finally dying. Historians do note that primary Persian sources for this exact punishment are limited, so some specific details may have grown more dramatic over time. But the core method is referenced independently across multiple ancient writers, which suggests something close to this really did happen.
Looking back at lists like this, it's easy to feel grateful for how far we have come. But it's worth remembering, these weren't isolated incidents and they weren't hidden in secret either. For most of human history, public, brutal punishments were the norm, not the exception. It was law, it was entertainment, and for the people watching, it was just another day. Which one of these surprised you the most? Let me know down below.